So in this video, the big focus is going to be talking about package structure and really project structure in Golang. Just to recap what happened in the last video, and I'll link to it. We just really got installed with Golang, got VS Code set up, along with some plugins. I highly recommend using an IDE, but any of the stuff that we're doing doesn't have to be done with an IDE. I'll constantly be switching back between using the IDE to do stuff and using the terminal. So the fact that you can use a terminal with this kind of stuff means that you don't really need an IDE. You could use a basic text editor. So just jump right in where we left off. We had basically just been printing stuff in the last video just to get things to show that they were working. So in this case, I made a couple small tweaks. I removed some of the comments because this right here is pretty simple. There's not a lot of stuff going on in this main method. But again, want to recap. One more important thing here is that every Go project is going to have some entry point for the project, right? Or for anything that you run in Golang is going to have an entry point. Like it needs to start somewhere. That's always going to be the main function. That's going to live inside the main package. As you can see, I renamed the main.go function or the main.go file. It was originally foo.go, so now it's main.go. That's just a convention because if anybody else comes into this project and is looking for something, then they probably want to know where the starting point is. And an easy way to do that is just to name your like the important file where the main function is, name it main.go. So that's one way to do that. Cool. So I think the easiest way to talk about project structure is visually. So I'm going to go ahead and use this whiteboarding tool. Now, most of your Go projects are going to consist of Go files. So here's one, there's another. And then there's always going to be that one special file that has the actual main function, right? Like it's the same as all the other ones in that it's a Go file, right? But it's just a little bit more special than the others just because it has the main function, the entry point to your program. Now, if we were to do this in our current, project directory, file, I could say, like say I'm working on a project for a video game, and I might have like an astronaut, might have a cowboy.go, might have a knight.go, might have weapon.go. Cool. So I can keep doing this. I'm not writing any code because that's not the focus of the video. It's really just on how you structure this. But these might not all be related to each other, and in fact, they're not. I mean, you can make up some loose relationships. Like for example, astronauts and cowboys, they're all people, I guess. A knight is also a person, but a weapon is not necessarily a person. Although astronauts might have weapons, knights might have weapons, right? So you typically want to organize your code in a way that makes it easier for you to navigate / change, because as far as the Go compiler is concerned, it doesn't care. It's just going to see all your code as kind of like opaque regardless of the structure, and it's going to say, okay, do all these files that I want to run / use code from, do they pass the syntax check? Do they pass the grammar check? Are they, is it correct as far as the compiler is concerned, right? And then it'll spit out an executable or something like that, depending on the command you run. So big takeaway here is that you probably don't want to organize your projects like this unless you're doing something really simple and it's like maybe it's just these 5 files. I don't want to have to create like 200 to show you this. Just at a high level, the principle is the same. That's the idea. That if we were working with 5 or 6 files or 200 files, it's the same idea. So going back here, these are typically going to be organized, and I'll just, whoops, that's not what I wanted. Use red here. There might be like a bunch of files in here, right? These are typically going to be organized into things called packages. And so those packages in your computer are just directories. That's all they are. Right, and there might be some other stuff here. I'm going to make these purple. Right, these are directories. So let's go ahead and create those. So I'm going to have maybe like a space directory, and the astronaut goes in space. I'll have a desert directory, and the cowboy can go into the desert. maybe I'll have, in the desert there's a castle. I don't know. There might be a castle in the desert somewhere. And then a knight goes there, and then maybe in the in or I don't know, maybe I just have a factory too. And that's gonna live, I don't know, not necessarily anywhere. It's just gonna live alongside the others. Cool, and I have weapons there. So I'm just organizing these into directories, basically just like you would with anything else. Like if you're working at school, maybe you organize your directories by year / class subject, right? So that way everything's not all cluttered in the same place. Now, something I didn't show here is that you can also have another connection between a package and another package. In other words, a directory and another directory. So I kind of just did that now, even though I didn't say that I was going to. And let's make it red, and we had one file there. And you can do this, and you can keep adding more and more. It doesn't really stop. So in general, packages will have more packages or source files, and it's a recursive definition. So packages have source files, packages have packages, and then they could have another package of another package. You can keep going. It's finite at some point, right? But you could keep doing that as you see fit. So I kind of did that here in the desert, right? I have a desert, and then in the desert there's a castle. The castle has knights. Next major question is, okay, these are connected, and I was mentioning modules earlier, but these source files live somewhere. Do these packages live anywhere? The answer is yes. They live as part of modules at the top level. So this package is not directly linked. There's never going to be more than one link going out for this package. Like coming into it, if you think about it like this way, there could be many, but going out of it, like going out of a box, there's only going to be one. So this file will never be a member of this package over here, right? It'll never be this will never happen, right? So these all live in a module, and I'm going to draw this in green, right? And this module, it's not a directory. You'd think it would be based on the hierarchy that we have here, but it's not. The way you create it is using go mod init. And as you can see here, earlier I had some other stuff from just playing around, but you run go mod init. And it'll initially tell you, like, if you have a completely empty project, and you can do this as the first step in your project, up to you. But it's complaining that, hey, you're setting up a module, but you need to use some kind of link so that other people could consume your module. I'll explain what that means in a second. But to make it happy, what we would do is say something like go mod init github.com / give it your username, something like that, and then you'd say getting started, right? So what I just did was I created a module. As you can see, a file got created, and I called it github.com Untitled Golang getting started. What this is it's a way of saying, okay, this code in this project, in the Golang getting started project, and again, I could have named this anything. Like, as you can see, like, they even tell you, like, example.com, which is not, it's not anything real. There's nothing relevant to your project at that site, but it's there for like illustrative purposes, right? It's just saying, like, you could do this, right? The reason we use a link is because if anybody else wants to use your code, and they might, be somewhere on the other side of the planet, then you use this repository, because you don't, you're not going to, like, ask them to send you their code on a flash drive or something like that. I mean, I guess you could, but I don't. Good luck with that. So you use this, and modules are a way of managing dependencies. So it's not only going to give us a way to talk between these files, and I'll explain what that means shortly, but it's really, like, the big purpose of it is to, because as you can see, like, now everything's finally connected, right? Like, now these links are here, so that's what we were talking about earlier, like, are these connected? And the answer is yes, they are, to the module. The module gives us a way of managing dependencies, and what that means is, like, it's really more applicable when you're thinking about consuming other people's projects. So if you go on GitHub and you're like, hey, somebody made this really cool image processing library, I want to use it so I can, like, extend it and do something else, right? Then there's probably a module for it in Golang, and then what you would do is you'd say, okay, my project needs to use this, and your Go module would say like, okay, these are the dependencies. Your Go module would be kind of connected via other modules. So you can use code in here by going through the module. So you might have your module. Let's say this is mine, and this is you. If I wrote some really cool code that like did a bunch of stuff in here, what you could do is you could say, okay, you know what? I want to use some of that code because I put it out on GitHub. For public consumption. And then what you'd say is like, okay, link me to this in your own module. Your module would literally say like something along the lines, it would have this in there. And it would say, okay, you know, when you build your project, it would say, oh, I see that I have a dependency on this project over here, this one, right? Like you have a dependency on this project, go and grab that and pull down that code. So that's the basic idea of project structure in Golang. Now, I want to kind of quickly go into how do you use code that I write in Night. So for example, let's say, I wrote some code, and this is super basic, but I'm just going to say format dot, yeah, dot, so we have a Night that's happy to say hello. I wrote this code. I want to use it in main, because remember, any code that you write has to start in the main function. Anything that you want to run, like it doesn't have to start there. Any code that you want to run has to start here. So if you write code in these files, right? If you write code in here, right? Then you can't use this code unless somehow you reference it from main. Like somehow this has to link to that code. The way you do that is by importing stuff from this file. And it's not directly to this file. So the way what it would really look like is like, okay, I want to use this code, right? I want to use this code that's starred. I'm referencing it right here with the star. What you need to do is up here on another line is you need to import. You need to say, okay, go to this package and then import the code that's right here, right? Import this code. Go to this package and then go down to this code and import it. And so what that looks like here is something similar. So I could say hello, right? Right now the ID is complaining at me because it's like, hey, I don't know. Oh, it's an editor. VS Code's really just an editor, but it's complaining at me saying like, hey, I don't know what say hello is, right? Like, what is that? So what you would do is just like for format, like if I said just print ln on its own, and I said hi, it would complain and say, I don't know where this is. So what you do is you typically say, okay, well, it's in this package, so go and get it. And it works. Same thing here. What you do is you say, okay, this say hello, it's in Night, right? And it's inside of the castle package. So what I would do is I'd say castle.sayhello. But now there's another issue. Now it's saying, okay, well, I don't know what castle is. Say hello might totally exist, which is why you're not getting an error. But castle might not exist, so where's that from? And to get that, just like you imported format, you'd have to import castle. And to do that, you need this right here. You use the path of the module that you defined earlier in Go mod init. And then you'd say, okay, well, this right here is basically like the root directory of your project, right? Like it's the working directory of your project, like Golang getting started. Then I'd say, okay, well, it's in night.go is in desert, and castle comes after that. Cool, and now this works. And it's nested too, so, and you could do this at any level. So I could do this too. Package desert func say hello. And ln hi, it's really hot in the desert. And I could go back here to main.go and I could say something along the lines of desert.say hello, right? And it's going to complain because it doesn't know where desert is. The reason is because we haven't imported the package. So if I import it, it should be fine. So now you'll see what should happen is it'll say hi from main, then it'll say hi there, I'm a Night. Then it'll say, let me get rid of these. Then it'll say hi, it's really hot, right? So go run main.go. Cool. So those are the basics of structuring code / also how to use code from other packages / Go files. We'll talk more about this a little bit later, but the next video, like this really was kind of a, just in case somebody was like, oh, how do I structure the Golang project? Like, how do I do that? This is typically the way you do it. You could go on GitHub and like see other projects are structured very similarly to this. There's a Go module. There's always just one, and then there's a bunch of imports in the main package. Slash, like you could also go in here and import stuff from other places. So it all works the same. So in the next video, I'll cover more about the syntax, the language itself, how to use if statements, for loops, variables, etc. Some of the rules, like why is this capitalized? Because in other places you might see something like this, right? But this is actually very different from this in terms of behavior. So I'll talk about that in the next video. Let me know what you think in the comments, slash like if there's anything that could be explained better. Thanks.